Shadow's story began a lot like yours, Sonic. But where you found family and friends on this planet, Shadow found only pain and loss.
I only wanted to help.
It's all your fault!
I only wanted to help.
Stop acting like you've got any right to feel sorry for yourself! We're living in a hell you created!
Hey guys, Cjayy here. Have you ever finished a movie, game, or show that had a certain scene or that one character that you can't help but feel drawn to? Or did a favorite franchise recently get rebooted or remastered and you find yourself watching a modern reintroduction of characters you once knew a long time ago? I sure have. It's an art form itself to see these fictional characters bring closure and inspiration towards our real life struggles. The stories within stories have made their way into your soul, all because they resonate with something that you've experienced or something you wish you could experience. It's almost like an obligation to me to continue and build that bridge that can help give you guys the same peace and strength these characters gave me. Hopefully, you'll learn to further your own story all the way to the end, reflecting upon the journey so far. 2024 was a great year for animation. The best Transformers movie ever made came out. Arcane reminded me that some of my best gaming memories were on League of Legends. Frieren Season 1 finished and showed me the most beautiful story about healing over time and the impermanence of life. Sonic 3 came out with Keanu Reeves playing Shadow the fucking Hedgehog. Whew! I was a grown man squealing in my seat at the theater when that one song started playing, and you know what song I'm talking about. Oh, a hedgehog. Shadow the Hedgehog.
Wake the fuck up, samurai.
At the end of the day, they're just kids' movies, right? But what makes them good is that they weren't just made for kids, they were made for those who used to be kids. Stories that speak to your inner child. It's always beautiful when the studio sneaks in a message that can resonate with some of the kids in the audience who can grow up having learned these lessons early in life. But it can also go towards the adults who never got to learn it and are still quietly grieving the childhood they never got to say goodbye to. These stories are the ones that finally allowed me to hear them. After all these years, I finally stopped and listened. I heard my inner child calling out to me. I was in the army when the first Sonic movie came out. I remember the cops, they're after Sonic. I was in the army when the first Sonic movie came out. I remember specifically leaving base to watch it by myself without telling anyone because not a lot of soldiers want to be caught watching a kids movie all by themselves. But Sonic Adventure on the GameCube was the first video game I ever played, so of course it's got a special place in my heart, and I had to give this movie a chance. In the row in front of me in the theater, there was a young father with his son. When the Sega logo came up with footage of the original games, I overheard him say something around the lines of, "Look, that's what the games look like when I was your age. I loved playing them so much." And naturally, without any hesitation, the kid said, "Well, if you loved it, why'd you stop?" And I don't think the dad had a response. Someday, you'll grow old enough to start reading fairy tales again. But what took so long? Well, do these phrases sound any familiar to you? Stop acting like a kid. Look how start trying harder. Why can't you be more like your siblings, your cousins? Those video games are bad for you. And of course you're so emotional. You're making things worse. You're bringing up things that didn't even happen. Why can't you just be normal? Oh, and one that hurts me the most. What happened to my happy little boy?
That's a question. That's a question.
Just one sentence that only takes their mouth a few seconds to say can echo in your heart for years to come. Seeds of shame were planted on top of something that brought you joy or couldn't control. There's a unique type of damage that is done when these things are experienced during your developmental years. Whether it's through abuse or loss, unresolved trauma from your yesterday will eventually affect your tomorrow. Let's go over the concept of the inner child and the stages of grief, all while discussing stories that can help you process and heal the ways they affect you. By the end of this video, I hope that I can help you realize that it's okay. It's okay to dream, it's okay to laugh, it's okay to feel wonder without fear, it's okay to forgive without forgetting in order to keep moving forward. Your inner child needs you. For the sake of yourself and those around you, especially your future children, don't let your past define you and ruin your chances of becoming the good person you were always meant to be.
Go and make some mistakes, you live and you learn. Say that again.
What is the inner child? According to psychologist Carl Jung, the inner child is the idea of a subconscious entity that exists within your mind that continues to guide and influence who you are today. They guard the archive that houses all of your emotional memories, core beliefs, and your playful and inconsequential creativity. It's a part of you. It's you. It's your emotional programming, developed by the people and experiences that first taught you what love, shame, joy, and fear felt like. It's real, and to this day, it's still influencing your decisions and your relationships, with others, and with yourself. Your heart is a museum of everyone and everything you've ever loved, and sometimes the most ignored piece in that museum is yourself. Every action you make today is nothing more than a collection of answers and predictions pulled from your cached memories. So what happens when that data is corrupted? Where all memories, good and bad, are infected with bits of grief, trauma, and abandoned joy. Where can we, as adults, stop and realize that our childhood was robbed by the unforgiving march of time? The video title isn't just "What is the inner child?" or "Why it's a good idea to heal the inner child," or "Psychologists hate this one trick, don't click the sound." I'm telling you that you need to heal your inner child. You're too much, you're not enough, why can't you be like your siblings? These aren't just words, they become internal scripts that run your life. But what's the difference between being told those things now and back then as a kid? Think about who the usual suspects are when we think of who says these kinds of things. Parents, teachers, and peers. The axe forgets, but the tree remembers. At this point in time, you literally just spawned in. These caretakers are the ones responsible for feeding, sheltering, and teaching you as you navigate this new life. Everything they do and say is crucial to your understanding of the life you have yet to live. And kids will take that with them everywhere they go, the good and the bad. These early years are when children form their sense of morality, what's fair, what's safe, what's expected. It's also when they begin to compare themselves to others and form beliefs about whether they measure up or how to fit in general. Not all childhood wounds come from obvious trauma. Sometimes they come from silent pressures, misunderstood struggles, and broken examples of what love is supposed to look like. Some children are forced to grow up too soon, misjudged for conditions they didn't know they had, or shaped by the absence of safety, stability, and affection. And then there are those who experience grief before they even learn how to spell it. There are 5 stages of grief. The Kubler-Ross model identifies them as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. The most important part about understanding this model is that the stages are not in order, nor are they timed. They are non-linear and personal, with individuals moving through stages at their own pace and in their own order, sometimes even repeating a stage, or going through multiple stages at the same time. One day you're angry, the next you're numb, and sometimes years later you find yourself bargaining with a loss you thought you already made peace with. In Sonic 3, Sonic and Shadow are 2 foils to each other in the sense that they both endured the death of a loved one early in their lives. Sonic grew towards isolation, but eventually found a new family to belong to and fight for. Meanwhile, Shadow, for as long as he could remember, grew up as a weapon, only because he was surrounded by people who said he was a weapon. The one person who was ever able to show him love and purpose was taken from him.
My grandfather says it can take hundreds of years for the light of a star to reach Earth. And by the time we see it, the star might not even exist anymore.
A light shines, even though the star is gone.
Shadow is then imprisoned into a hibernation state for 50 years, where he was constantly dreaming about the accident, manifesting his hatred. Bring this concept over to reality. People who have endured loss are sometimes unable to move on. It may feel like you've put your life on pause, constantly reliving the event or chasing the peace you had prior to the event, still navigating the 5 stages of grief.
I can't get her out of my head. The pain. It's too much.
I was 8 years old. It was my uncle's birthday party. The entire house was packed with all my relatives and family friends. My cousins and I took over the entire living room on the couch as we played Pokemon Diamond and Pearl on our DSs. We were trading, battling, coaching, and giving funny names to Pokemon. Life was good. As the party ended, my parents encouraged me to actually go and wish my uncle a happy birthday before we left. I walked into his room. I was smiling, he was smiling. I hugged him and I walked out. On the car ride home, my mom told me that my uncle was gone. Closed my DS, looked out the window, and sat in silence for the rest of the ride. This entire time, he had been battling cancer, and they agreed to pull his life support after one last birthday party. And no one told me. My family reasoned that I was too young to understand and that they didn't want me to worry. But as I dived deeper into anger, I saw it as betrayal. Like I was lied to by my own loved ones. How dare they not tell me that that was the last time I was ever going to see him? Do they think I'm stupid? Am I stupid for not realizing? All I was able to think about was that I never got to say goodbye. But due to my inability to process everything and my obligation to be mommy's happy little boy, my family never realized how much that hurt me. I remember at the funeral, I was always told to put the DS away because now's not a good time to be playing Pokemon. I remember being in high school and finding out that emulators exist, and I downloaded Pokemon Platinum and played that instead of doing well in school. I remember room inspections in the army, and every leader always had a comment as to why a grown man had so many Pokemon plushies. I even bought a Switch to play nothing else but Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. I realized I was chasing the calm before the storm, chasing any semblance of peace and joy before the cataclysmic event that redirected my entire adolescence for the worse. This phenomenon is known as repetition compulsion. It's when a person unconsciously repeats behaviors, relationships, or engages in environments or activities that resemble or trigger aspects of a past traumatic event, not to suffer again, but often in a subconscious attempt to hopefully gain emotional control over the original experience or even find resolution. Part of us still believes we can rewrite what went wrong. Other examples include keeping certain objects, revisiting places, or engaging in activities that were once tied to a person they lost, almost ritualistically. People might rewatch or replay things they experienced during traumatic times, like a childhood show or a video game. Sometimes it's nostalgic, sometimes it's destructive. At its core, it's the mind's way of trying to go back in time and understand and master what it never got to fully process. When children experience loss, whether through the death of a loved one, parental divorce, or other significant changes, they almost always lack the tools, language, and emotional maturity to process their feelings, scrambling back and forth through the 5 stages of grief, suffering, and silence. Grief isn't just sadness, it's confusion, anger, numbness, regret.
But what is grief? If not love, persevering?
When we can name what we're feeling, we gain power over it. Grief doesn't vanish, but it becomes something we can live with, something we can carry instead of letting it carry us. Unresolved childhood grief doesn't fade. It festers, and over time it spills out in our behavior, our relationships, our health, and our self-image. Expectations can be just as harmful. There's trauma and abuse, but the expectation to constantly be happier and stronger can leave an impact as well. This is very common in eldest or even only childs. You were forced to grow up faster than you wanted to, and now your inner child was left behind in that timeline. You spent so much time trying to be strong that you forgot to spend time being happy. Life starts to feel like an array of obstacles you constantly have to overcome, rather than an adventure to be explored. Did you grow up with a sensory impairment, maybe even depression, or of course attention deficit hyperactivity? Have you or a loved one been diagnosed with mesothelioma? If so, you may be entitled. You were taught to stop enjoying the things you enjoy and taught to hate yourself over a condition or circumstance you had no control over. Growing up with an undiagnosed mental condition can almost always lead to depression later in life. Kids don't just grow up with the self-awareness that they have some type of impairment. Kids with ADHD are labeled disinterested or misbehaving. Some are held back a grade because they can't spell or read, only to find out later they have something like dyslexia. They don't have control over it, let alone know they have it. But caretakers, the ones responsible for guiding and providing for them, label them as lazy, disruptive, or even defiant. So they believe it. They internalize failure before they even understand why they failed, thinking as if they deserve it. If the adults I depend on and who are fully responsible for raising me say that I'm abnormal, then I guess that means I'm abnormal. Everybody's a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. Instead of being healed, people choose to be distracted. They might engage in harmful coping mechanisms such as substance abuse, overworking, impulsive actions, people-pleasing, or avoidance of triggering situations. Or worse, taking it out on someone else. Characters like Shadow let their hate and vengeance control them, eventually replicating his trauma for Sonic during his outrage. If it wasn't for the power of Flashback no Jutsu and Crush 40, Sonic would have continued the cycle. You might have heard it before as generational trauma. The pain doesn't end with you, but if we don't remedy it, we pass it down. Not just through abuse, trauma, and violence, but through silence, neglect, and emotional absence as well. While this often manifests between parents and children, it can also show up in past relationships or friendships. The people you hurt may carry that pain into their future connections, either by repeating those patterns or becoming overly guarded to avoid being hurt again. I'm sure you've heard of mommy and daddy issues being thrown around, right? Boys with controlling mothers may grow fearful of women. Girls with absent fathers may accept mistreatment from men as normal. Your parental figures are your first impression of what it means to love. Growing up around abuse, infidelity, or divorce can cause kids to believe that love is conditional, that honesty is temporary, or that they're somehow to blame for the fallout. You either avoid attachment or cling to it too lightly. You might self-sabotage relationships just to prove your fears right, or have difficulties getting into a relationship in the first place. Sometimes, the person you become is a direct rebellion against those who raised you, or a mirror image of them, despite your efforts. If that's how you learn to love, conditional, volatile, inconsistent, then how could you not carry that confusion with you into every future relationship? A child not embraced by its village will grow up to burn it down just to finally feel warmth.
I was meant to be new. I was meant to be beautiful. The world would have looked to the sky and seen hope, seen mercy. Instead, they'll look up in horror because of you. You've wounded me.
Take a look at children who grew up in war-torn or high-crime communities, or ones that were victims of natural disaster or just in general experienced the loss of a loved one early in their lives. They learned very early that survival is often reliant on chance. They learned about life's impermanence before they learned how to drive. They display signs of hypervigilance, emotional suppression, and helplessness. We see those behaviors in veterans who come back from war, so imagine what happens to children who grew up in that war. You're barely beginning your life, yet you're already aware and afraid of death. Because of their inability to communicate and process their emotions, their caretakers may not realize how affected they are by loss.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
We talked about traumatic events and how you can be stuck reliving it, constantly thinking about it. But what about the opposite? The inability to remember it? What about those repressed memories? The brain can be found suppressing or fragmenting traumatic memories as a defense mechanism, shielding itself from something it's not ready to confront. If it wasn't for pictures and videos, people often forget the faces and mannerisms of a lost loved one or a previous relationship. Not because they weren't important, but because simply seeing them and thinking about them reignites the pain of them being gone. We talked about how accessing certain memories can cause issues, what happens when those memories aren't even there. What data can you refer back to as you move forward in life? Since children don't have the language or emotional regulation to fully understand what happened, the brain can tuck away the experience to protect their development. You live in a perpetual state of something's wrong, but not knowing what or why. Because the trauma was never fully acknowledged, the inner child is frozen in that moment, still waiting for someone to recognize what happened and say those magic words.
It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. I know. No, you don't. It's not your fault.
It's not your fault. No one has control over when and where they are brought into this world. You are not responsible for the experiences and environments you fell victim to. You wanted love and you didn't get it. It's not your fault. But how long can we use the sentiment? When does it become your fault? When does healing become your responsibility? How long will you wait until you let your inactions affect others? The pain may not be your fault, but the choices you make from that pain, the people you pass that pain on to, that's where accountability begins. Break the cycle now. Healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means integrating the pain so it no longer controls you. Sometimes that begins by simply giving yourself permission to enjoy the things that once made you feel alive and letting go of the things that kill you from the inside. One helpful key is forgiveness, and there are 4 kinds of people that you can start forgiving in order to heal. Number 1, your parents. One of the easiest things to forget is that while you were growing up, your parents were growing up too. Holding on to the resentment you have over what they did to you or couldn't do for you is pointless. You're holding a grudge against someone who no longer exists. 2, the ones you used to love, whether it was a peaceful drift or a falling out. Not all characters make it to the end of the story, but you won't know how the story ends if you keep rereading old chapters. Their story no longer aligns with yours, and you can't hate them or yourself for it. Next at 3 are those who hurt you, loved ones, strangers, or anyone in general who let you down. You don't go back and chase a snake and ask why it bit you, so why should you expect an apology from someone who betrayed you? You don't need an apology, you need peace. And 4, the most important person, and arguably the most difficult person to forgive, it's you. Don't punish the old you for doing the best with what they knew and had. If anything, you need to be the person the old you needed the most. What's the point of going into a villain arc when you can go into a hero arc instead, and you can start saving the person that you left behind? Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's freedom. Freedom from being a slave to versions of people that don't exist anymore. Forgive them not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. The movie Suzume follows Suzume as she goes around closing doors that were once marked as portals to a mysterious and magical place that, if left open, can release a destructive force of nature into the real world. Sound familiar? By ignoring these past wounds, denying them the closure they need, you face the risk of allowing the pain and destruction from that time into your current life and possibly hurting others in the process. At the end of the movie, she was finally able to go back and resolve the main and most difficult conflict of the film, and stop the giant worm in Saber Crush. There was a really dumb and corny line at the end where she jumps into the portal that honestly kind of killed the vibe.
I'm going! Wish me luck! Huh? Going where? To see the person I love!
A lot of people say it was rushed, their romance wasn't fleshed out, this was kind of lame, but after rewatching the movie a couple more times, I realized that when she said she was going to see the person I love, she wasn't talking about him. All your life, you've desperately searched, alone and afraid, looking for that one person who can finally give you the love and warmth you've always deserved, only to find out that this entire time, that person, well, it's you.
Right now, things are really tough, but I'll tell you a secret. They won't always be that way. So don't worry, okay? The future's not that scary.
We can't control what wounded us, but we can still choose whether or not we let that bleed into the people we love, the relationships we build, or the lives we touch. This doesn't mean rushing your healing or pretending the past didn't hurt. It means recognizing when it's time to stop surviving and to start living.
They didn't bring us here to change the past.
Say that again.
They didn't bring us here to change the past.
You've spent so long trying to be strong. It's time to start being happy. I guarantee you that the things you enjoyed as a kid will absolutely bring you joy as an adult, especially those things that you felt like you didn't fully enjoy. Every second I spend editing this video, I'm taken back to my days of using Windows Movie Maker to upload my Minecraft Skyblock Let's Play. I can only appreciate what I do now because I have loving memories of what I did back then to compare it to. The games, the shows, the movies, the stories, they aren't just nostalgia, they're medicine. As a kid, you wanted the powers of Spider-Man, but you grow up and realize that all you really need is the strength of Peter Parker.
I don't know what to do.
Yes, you do.
Look at how much closure and experience you've gained from these fictional stories. If you keep thinking of them as not real or here, well, think about the people who also aren't here. Would you say they're not real either?
Their memory serves as an example to us all! Their lives have meaning because we, the living, refuse to forget them!
We keep them alive in memory. We speak to them in silence, and sometimes we carry guilt for continuing on without them. But they are no different than the stories and characters that also bring us peace, whose stories now have their own place in the museum of your life.
The last time I sat beneath stars like this, I was with her. I've felt this pain for so long. It's all I know.
When I lost Longclaw, I felt the same way.
Did your pain eventually go away?
No, but in time, I learned there's something even more powerful than pain. The love we felt for each other. That's what you need to hold on to, Shadow. Maria might be gone, but your love will always remain.
The light shines, even though the star is gone.
For the longest time, I questioned my family for not telling me that that was the last time I'd ever see my uncle. But as I look back at it, maybe it was a good thing. It's nice knowing that in his final moments, his last time seeing me, I was smiling. He moved forward in life knowing that I was still full of innocence and joy, uncorrupted by the grief I was about to endure. Just because they're not here does not mean they're gone. They exist in our hearts as their stories continue to motivate and guide us until the day we become someone else's story. Life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. But most of the work has already been done. What if you're wasting your time trying to become a new person when all you needed to do was go back to being who you always were? You're not broken, you're becoming. Your inner child never needed you to be perfect, they needed you to be present. If they could speak to you right now, they would be so proud of you. Not because the journey was perfect, but because you kept moving forward. Now go. Find that little lost soul and let them know that everything's going to be okay.
There will be so many people in your life who will love you, and you'll even fall in love with someone yourself one day. The night might seem endless right now, but I promise the morning will come again, and you'll grow up basking in its light. Your life will be a bright one. I know, because it's written in the stars.
It's okay. It's okay to dream. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to be childish. It's okay to be you. Despite everything, it's still you. And hey, if all of that is too much to remember, we could always sum it up into 2 simple steps. Live and learn.